Hello gamers, welcome back, or in case you are new here, I'm Encasiel, and in this video I want to talk about Black Desert Online. More specifically, about what the near future holds for this MMO, which I consider to be the best MMORPG to play in 2024, at least for now, until more MMORPGs come out. First things first, it's 2024, so I wish you all a happy new year, and I hope you manage to achieve all the new year resolutions you set for yourself. Personally, I want to achieve 1000 subscribers on this channel, so with that in mind, if you enjoy my content, consider leaving a like and subscribe. With that out of the way, let's get back to the topic. I will be talking about what the developers are currently doing with BDO, and what the first half of 2024 will bring. There will be even a very exclusive Wyvern mount. Yes, you've heard me right, a rideable Wyvern. But before I talk about that, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about BDO as an MMORPG for those of you that are not familiar with it or haven't played it in the last few years. BDO is catalogued as a sandbox MMO, and this means that the way you should experience it is vastly different from the average theme park MMO. I see a lot of people that have been psychologically conditioned by theme park MMOs, and when they start BDO, all they ask is how long will it take until you reach endgame and what you do once you reach endgame, because the real content in theme park MMOs starts at endgame. Well, this is not the case with BDO. This MMO is all about the journey to endgame, the experiences and memories you forge along the way, and not the endgame itself. If all you are looking for in an MMORPG is the raiding experience, then BDO is most definitely not an MMORPG for you. But if you want more from your MMOs, if you want a truly immersive fantasy world, then BDO is at this very moment the closest game to that ideal. I am voicing all of this because it is important to have the right expectations and mindset when starting any new game. For example, if you play a shooter and you expect a real-time strategy experience, you will be disappointed. With that in mind, BDO goes back to the roots of MMORPGs, and as I mentioned a second ago, it has an amazing fantasy world to explore. But just having an amazing world to explore is not enough, especially for a game like BDO that has thousands of activities to do. This can be a bit confusing for new players. Because of this, the developers created the Season Experience. This is basically a way for new players to get into the game, as it streamlines the experience and slowly teaches people about the game. It also doubles as a catch-up mechanic, and the rewards are pretty great, so even veteran adventurers make new characters and participate, which of course results in the game having a very pleasant new player experience. As a new player, once you have learned the basics of the game, and are ready to progress further, you'll be able to continue your experience on the normal servers. But worry not, this MMO has content for all kinds of players. So there is still equalized and even gear cap PvP. As for PvE, there will always be things to do based on the stage of progression you are at. I could literally talk for 20 hours or more about the kinds of content available in BDO and what they entail. But the truth is, all this is unnecessary for anyone watching the video. All you really need to know is that there are plenty of activities to choose from. An exceptionally good thing about BDO is that they are continuously changing and updating elements. From things for completely new players to endgame players, they strive to provide everyone with something to enjoy. We should very well know technical advancement and feedback play an important role in improving a game. So, on top of always bringing new content in, they are even improving the game engine, reworking old features and content to be in line with today's standards. This is something that almost nobody else in the industry does, at least nowhere near to this level of quality. The only game that comes close to BDO when it comes to updates is Warframe, and they are a distant second place. Sadly, BDO has a poor reputation online, especially from people that haven't played it or haven't played it enough to understand the way the game actually works. The two main things that you might have heard of are that the game is pay to win and the random progression. A very common theme for new players is them voicing how the game is nothing like what they expected, and how opinions they find online are completely bogus, and how much misinformation there is around this game. When it comes to pay to win, it has the reputation for being an extremely pay to win game, and this is simply outdated, to put it lightly. Right now, there is nothing that is really needed from the cash shop. Some people can make an argument for a convenience item called Tand and for needing a value pack, which is the optional subscription. But other than that, everything else is simply unnecessary. They have basically fixed all the inconvenience that existed and were forcing people to use the cash shop. Wait is no longer a problem. Inventory slots are no longer a problem. The game gives you enough pets for simply completing the main quest. The banks are now shared, there is even fast travel, and so much more. Don't get me wrong, someone that spends tens or hundreds of thousands on the game can progress faster, but this is not something that matters. BDO is mainly a play-to-win game, and the overwhelming majority of players at endgame are people that did not spend anything on progression. The other real problem was the RNG progression. But what anyone that hates on this system fails to mention, intentionally or not, is that unlike other games that have RNG progression, this is not the only way to progress in BDO. RNG progression is just one of the paths you can choose to take. Make no mistake, this is a choice, and the game does not force you in any way into using the RNG progression. With the exception of a very few endgame items, you can obtain every single progression item through various means. There are guaranteed quests, and also everything can be purchased from the central market. To put it simply, people that enjoy gambling and RNG systems will use the enhancing system, while people that do not should use the guaranteed ways. Personally, I think those were the main negatives the game had, and they have been completely fixed now. But nothing is perfect, and BDO is no exception. Just like any game, it has many things that can be improved upon, and with the passing of time, new technologies become available. However, unlike most developers in this genre, as I mentioned previously, BDO devs are continuously updating every aspect of the game, including the game engine. Which brings us to the next part, and that is what the upcoming updates will bring to the game. I will start by talking about the quality of life changes, because I strongly believe small things are what makes the difference between a good game and a great one, and of course small things that irritate us can slowly turn into big frustrating problems that can even make us quit a game. BDO being such a complex game that literally has the most updates even when compared to MMOs that have been online for 2 or even 3 times its lifespan, it ended up having a vast amount of items. The developers have recognized this can be extremely confusing for new players and even frustrating for veterans, so they have decided to simplify and consolidate various items with similar functions. For example, instead of having blackstones for armors and blackstones for weapons, the game is only going to have one type of these basic blackstones. Another example is the 3 different types of upgrade stones for seasonal gear. These have been consolidated into only one type that now provides all 3 functions. The same kind of change will be applied to many items such as crafting materials, elixirs, seeds, crystals, and so on. BDO also has puzzle items that need to be arranged in a specific pattern, and while this is pretty cool concept, in practice these items do not stack and end up taking quite a bit of inventory space. So they are making them stackable now. Another part of this item simplification update is the introduction of a UI that will track all the event currency in-game. If you're not very familiar with BDO, this might not seem very important, but the game has multiple bi-weekly or monthly events running at all times. Because of this, there is a vast amount of different event currencies, so this change will be pretty impactful. All these item simplification updates will actually be pretty impactful for both veterans that have to sort through inventories, which with time can get frustrating, and for new players alike that find it confusing and quite overwhelming. For a new player, even picking up a new life skill like cooking or alchemy can be pretty confusing when there are hundreds of recipes and each of them require different materials. It's often so confusing that new players don't even bother to explore these elements of the game until they are well acquainted with the game. Of course, all these changes will also free a lot of inventory and bank space. While space is not a big problem right now, since they have already made a lot of changes to improve this, it's still very nice to basically never have to worry about space. The next absolutely massive quality of life update that I have been advocating for since the first days of BDO is account shared life skills. It's finally happening and I personally couldn't be happier. Outside of a very few select life skills, I personally got fairly bored of doing them, and the main reason for this was that they are character bound, and I very much dislike that. Some of the life skills are also quite impactful, like sailing for example, and it is quite limiting factor when you have to level it again or pay to transfer it to a new character. This change will totally solve the problem of dedicating specific characters to specific life skills, and overall I think it is one of the best quality of life changes that are coming this year. Part of this quality of life update and their continuous efforts to keep the game up to today's standards does also involve reworking and improving quests, like the main quest being voice acted and having better cutscenes and so on. But this is something that they have done countless times and they will continue to do so. Similar to this is them continuously reworking grind zones and slightly improving both the RNG and non-RNG progression elements. They are also improving the presets and adding a special UI for everything that you can think of related to presets. With this quality of life updates out of the way, I think it is time to talk about new content that will be coming next year. Since I mentioned the Wyvern mount in the beginning of the video, I will start with the changes related to guilds. So, they are adding a Wyvern mount for guilds that own a castle. Owning a castle in BDO can be considered a pretty great achievement, and having a Wyvern mount as a reward for doing so will be extremely cool. At the same time, it will create a lot of incentive for more players to get into the endgame PvP scene. Unlike in most MMOs, these wyverns will not be just flying chickens. Mounts in BDO are quite impactful, and they said that these wyverns will not only look cool, but also have some amazing abilities. Personally, I'm playing casually in recent years, so this is not something for me, but I still find it extremely cool that I will be able to see people riding wyverns. Since we're talking about guilds, they will also be adding guild manors, which will be a space where guild members can teleport to and from for the purpose of socializing as well as using shared cooking and alchemy tools. Personally, I hope they expand on this feature, because there are plenty of cool things that have been done before by other games when it comes to guild housing. Another new feature will be something they call guild leagues. This will be a ranked 15 vs 15 battle where you and your guild members can compete with other guilds. BDO has the most avenues for PvP out of any MMORPG, and I think it's really cool to see them creating even more and catering to all their players, not only to specific groups like other MMOs do. They are also improving the PvE content for guilds. The guild bosses will be weekly activities, and a special function will be added to even teleport guild members to some of these bosses. The last but not least notable addition to guilds will be the ability for guild members to rent gear to each other. This has been previously implemented with mounts, and it was a pretty great addition. It's cool to see them expanding on the rent feature. During 2024, there will also be an expansion update like they have been roughly doing every year. I say roughly every year because, for example, in 2023 they had 2 expansion-sized updates, with the second one being a bit smaller since it was mostly content aimed at veteran players. So in 2024 we will be getting the second part of the Land of Morning Light. The first part of this continent had amazing reception from the community, being considered the best expansion yet. This introduced very fun solo boss challenges and pretty amazing Korean folklore stories. If the first region in the Land of Morning Light was aimed at solo players, the second one will be aimed toward guilds and group play. They have specifically said that the bosses in this expansion will have mechanics that will require cooperation and coordination. Considering their recent history with group content, I personally expect this to be their best expansion so far. This expansion will also bring slumbering origin tier weapons and a new Mel class. All we know about this class is that he will be using a sword and a pipe, and it will be some kind of spiritualist class. Some people are already piecing together some leaks and are theory crafting that this will be some kind of necromancer. However, until more new information is announced, we can only wait. The last piece of content I want to mention is the return of Altar of Blood. This used to be a wave defense mode, similar to wave defense maps in Warcraft 3 for those of you old enough to remember. They had this content in the game a couple years back, but it never met their expectations for quality, so they took it out. I know for a fact a decent amount of us playing the game used to enjoy this mode. Despite the rewards being quite terrible, some of us used to play it just because it was enjoyable. So the developers decided to rework it, and they said it will be returning this year. Personally, I very much enjoy this piece of content and I really look forward to playing it again, especially once it is improved. These are, in my opinion, all the notable changes that have been discussed so far. This seems like a lot of things, but BDO developers have proven time and time again that they can deliver more content than any other MMORPG developers. To be honest, this is probably not even all the content they have planned for 2024. There will be countless events, probably a lot more quality of life changes, and so on. For me, these updates are the reason why BDO stands tall way above every other MMORPG. But please keep in mind, as I mentioned previously, if you want a simple raiding experience from your MMOs, this will not be the best MMO for you. But for anything else, this will by far provide a much better experience than anything else on the market right now. That is all I wanted to talk about today, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe and all that jazz if you feel like it. See you in the next one, gamers.